explain that we are conducting the meeting on the territories of the Sproat people, and to appreciate that fact, and also just give notice to everybody in attendance here that the meeting is being recorded as always, but it's also being live streamed on the YouTube website. Sorry, we're just getting some feedback in there. There we go. So we do have we got a number of members online, and we have the applicants with us here as well. And then in the room we have Roberta Jensen and Joanne Bessler, as well as myself, Alex Dyer, and Alima Koja with the planning staff. So maybe I'll ask one of the attendees here in the room if there's a volunteer to be the chair. A lot of finger pointing going on. If you could use your microphone just so everybody online can hear you. Thank you.
All right, I will volunteer to be chair. So doing that, we need approval of the agenda. We need to move or a seconder or just? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Declarations, conflict of interest. Explain that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So the this would be the moment where anybody who has a conflict of interest on one of the applications would make the declaration. You could let us know ahead of time. It doesn't have to be as formal as this, but yeah, speak up if you feel like you're in conflict on one of the applications, and usually that's where it's like a family member or you have a financial interest in that. Just to help with actually the rest of the agenda here, because it is fairly new. So we have a minutes section as well. I know that we've in the past we've shared minutes by email after the meeting, so we will be including these on the committee agendas in the future, and the committee will be adopting those meeting minutes. So the next meeting you see will have the minutes from this one, where you'll be adopting that. And then the correspondence section number 5 would be the one where we would, if we have anything, any letters or anything like that to share with the agency, we would be including it in that section of the agenda.
Okay, proceeding on, planning applications. First one, 8245 Dickinson Drive.
Yes, thank you very much. We're happy to introduce this one, and we do have Joe Lamoureux with us, who is the agent for the applicant. So, thank you, Joe. This is a short-term rental temporary use permit application, as noted on the property at 8245 Dixon Drive. This is an application that we've had for a long time now, and it has recently been reactivated by the applicants. They have a 4-bedroom house, and they're intending to use that as an STR occasionally for 1 week stays. We do have the property details available for you in the report if you have any questions about it. It's about a half-acre property with a house and a garage and a septic on site that was installed in 2007. So we've included the septic details available for you in the package, and that's to accommodate a 4-bedroom house, as noted, with a maximum occupancy of 5 people. Just note that as the applicants did say they wanted this for 1 week stays, we included that requirement in the TUP as well. But beyond that, I think it is a fairly standard application in terms of the way STRs would go. There would be off-street parking that would be provided. They do have the assessment from the registered on-site wastewater practitioner already. And of course, it would be required to register as a host with the province under the STR Accommodations Act. And then there's a number of nuisance-related issues that are dealt with in the conditions. The parking, as I mentioned, boat slip available for use on the property, and some boat safety information. And then the owner or a caretaker would be available within 20 meters of the property. And of course, if the ownership were to change, or if there were an issue with the operation of the STR, the board would have the option to go through the process to rescind that. The TUP would be valid for 3 years. if successful, and this would be the first step in the application process, with the next step being the neighbor notification and compiling any information that we have from the neighbors before the board makes a final decision. Do you want to add anything to that, Joe?
No, like you said, Alex, it's a pretty standard application. They purchased the house some years ago, and at the time inherited some clients that rented the house during the summer. And these same people have come back through the years, and now they just want to make the whole property above board, and perhaps even load up the property on one of the websites that advertise them, like an Airbnb situation or that kind of a thing. They also use the house periodically for themselves as well during the summer. So it's kind of like a back and forth thing where they try and use it when it's not being rented.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at all or comments?
Yeah. I thought I saw a hand. Oh. Renee, yeah.
Yes. This may not be exactly regarding the question, but I was looking at the zoning on this property. The north, the east, and the south zoning are all A1, and then the west zoning is waterfront 1. What does waterfront 1 qualify the person to have or not have?
That's a good question. That is the waterfront one's the zoning we have on the lake. So the west property line would be the lakefront. And the way we have the zone divided on the lakefront is the WF1 and the WF2. WF1 being the main difference between the two being where you can overnight in a houseboat. So the WF1 zone is where there's no overnight accommodation on a houseboat. The WF2 zone that's applied to the foreshores at the end of Taylor Arm, and in Two Rivers Arm, that's where the commercial houseboats can beach overnight. Beyond that, the WF1 zone allows for things like docks and moorage and everything that you would expect to have on the waterfront there.
Thank you.
Penny?
Thank you. So this application is for all year, I'm assuming. So it's not a summer 6-month kind of rental period frame. It's 12 months.
That's their intention, yes, to have the ability over here. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I don't have any.
Somebody be interested in motion? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, would someone like to make a move a motion? I see a hand, but I can't see a body. Oh, no.
It's me. I'm right next to you.
Look at that way.
I will move that this proceed to neighbor notification. Because it's really trying to bring above board what's already been going on here. So I think it's a good idea to hear what the neighbors have to say.
Okay. Seconder? Joe, gonna second it?
And
Although-
all in favor? Sorry.
All
I'm
those
stealing
in
your job.
favor? Okay. Opposed, carried. Thank you.
All right, Joel Emery, that motion passed. So the next board meeting will be December 13th. And so we'll take this recommendation and the staff report to the board. If they proceed with it, we'll do the neighbor notification. We'll bring it back in January.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have a quorum and does that make any difference?
We don't have a quorum, but we do, we'll make note of that in the staff report. It doesn't hold up or delay an application automatically. We'd be looking for some guidance from you, Penny. If this was something you would like to see referred back to the APC, we could always do that. But I think the staff recommendation in these cases is usually to proceed with the neighbor notification, and then we could always bring that back to the APC if there's any issues.
I don't see any issues unless there's been complaints coming from this rental.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any, but certainly those would be highlighted as part of that public info process. So that's a good point, and we will flag that if there's any correspondence that comes back, we can let you know.
Okay, can we move on to the 9694 Lakeshore Road application?
All right, thank you so much. And this is another short-term rental temporary use permit application. We do have Mark Labrie and Grace Russell here representing the owners. This was a file that was on the agenda back in September for the APC, and the property owners weren't able to make that meeting, so we did bring this back to help answer some of the questions that were raised. The property itself is a 2.5 acre piece of land. A similar proposed use to the previous one. There's an existing 4-bedroom home on the property that they wish to use periodically for short-term rentals. I think primarily in the summer months in this one, but again, there's no restriction on when that would take place. They do have an assessment from the wastewater practitioner when this septic was installed. I'm just looking for the date here. It was installed 2009. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah.
So fairly recent, and as a condition of the temporary use permit, we would be looking to do a walkthrough with the building inspector as well, just to make sure that that's all safe and above board. The questions that were raised by the APC back on September 15th, when we had our initial discussion on this application, were the number of RVs that are stored and located on the property, and what the use of those RVs would be, and a clarification around the caretaker and how that would work. And I believe there's some information in there about Mark and Grace acting as the caretakers for this file, but I'll let them speak to that. Beyond that, the terms and conditions are fairly similar to what they were on the previous file. It would be valid for up to 3 years. The occupancy would be limited to 2 persons per bedroom, so it'd be an 8-person SDR use, must be registered with the province, and then parking available on site and so on. So again, the staff recommendation here would be that this proceeds to that neighbor notification process, if the board is supportive of that. Maybe I will pass it over to you, Mark, if you'd like to speak.
No
to
problem.
I see your hand.
Yeah,
up.
sorry. I just wanted to clarify that Grace was not part of the application. That it was just myself and Fawn, my wife.
Okay, sorry about that. She was the previous application. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
You go
Just
ahead,
for
Mark,
clarity.
if you're. I think my comments are done. If you'd like to
Sure.
speak to the file, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. For clarity, yeah, we do have. Personally, we own 2 RVs. One of them is undercover, and then one of them is beside the house under a tarp. And my mom, who lives in Calgary, stores her RV on the back of the property. It's 2.5 acres. Or sorry, she lives in Nelson now. We just have more room on our property, so when she wants to use it, it's there. She usually comes out in the summer months and does a little bit of touring around and might spend a night or 2 there. And occasionally, also my father and mother-in-law do park their motorhome there for a night or 2 when they come to visit us. So depending on when somebody was there, they could have seen as many as 4 But two of them are ours. One of them is my mom's, who lives in Nelson, and the in-laws kind of visit occasionally with their RV.
Okay, and the caretaker availability. So would you act as
Yeah,
the caretaker, Mark?
yeah, we would. Yeah, we bought the house from George Steinbrenner in 2011. And yeah, we've been living there. Next door, we do have my uncle lives next door, so he's got lots of room, and so for the occasional week, then we would be able to stay there and be available for the renters literally next door. So not a problem.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Um, yeah, anybody else? I have a couple. I'm confused
Yeah.
because at one point, in the management, it says no, campers and that allowed, but the back half, um, if you have family that comes that would stay there a few days and then you're going to have an on-site manager part of the time. I'm assuming that's Ash.
No, Ash is, well, he may be there during the summer, so that could be either Ash or that could be myself, or Fawn, depending on who was there at the time.
Okay, so is that allowed, Alex? Like, I was reading it double. One says you can't, and the other they're there. So
Yeah, I think the questions that were raised by the committee before were more about the use of the RVs. You know, just clarifying whether they're family or not. If you look at the zoning, where you know what the zoning allows in a residential zone is a maximum of 24 hours in an RV. So it
Okay.
is limited to that, but you know that is fairly common use at the lake as we all for for short stays. I think where one of the questions that staff had as well as some of the HC members is whether those RVs would be used as part of a short-term rental use, and you know that would be limited and
No.
would not be permitted under the.
okay,
No, so sorry to clarify, the application is only for the home. We're not renting any RVs. The RVs are primarily there as storage. So they're there's two that are our use. We use them for things like going to my son's bike races. They're on the property. And my mother's is being stored there as well. But she does come occasionally and stay there during the summer. But none of the trailers are being used as rentals. They're entirely my own family's.
okay. Joanne?
Hmm. We did discuss this last time. I wonder, you have zoning to set up a mobile home park.
Mhm.
So why are you going down the road of renting out the residence rather than using the existing zoning?
Because I don't want to run a mobile home park. That was never the intention. We have housing that we don't use occasionally, and particularly during the summer months. So opportunities where if I am with my son on a bike race, for example, and we're gone for a week, and it's my wife and my other son who are still on the property, we have room next door at my uncle's where they can stay and act as caretakers. And then we can rent out the house for that week. So it's for the times when we just don't need the actual housing, but we don't have interest in running an RV park or in renting out mobile homes. There's, you know, these are my family's trailers that they use for occasional vacations. So they're not even mine to rent really. So none of these are really what we want to be doing. It's just when we have housing that we're not using, essentially, that we could rent it out.
Okay. So why not? I think it's allowed, Alex, to rent out rooms in your home as long as you're there, right?
Yeah, so we do have the bed and breakfast use in the zoning that allows for the rental of individual rooms. You know, if the common services are provided. So if you have a home and you've got some extra bedrooms, you can rent out up to 2 bedrooms, and you know that's allowed everywhere in zoning. This would be for a you know the purpose rental of the entire self-contained home.
Mhm.
And then it sounds like the caretaker, you know, your family would live right next door to help look after them.
That's exactly it. So yeah, we've got family who has the property directly beside us. They're the neighbor, and they have often vacant room in their house, and on the two properties next door. So it would be easy for two people to move over there for a time, live as we normally do, play on their dock, and enjoy. We're all family, and then just be able to rent out. You know, we similarly, before the regulations came in place, we had renters like Van Vliet's and others who had been coming for years, and it would be great to have the opportunity to rent it to them and bring that above board. And that's an example I'm using because that's one family where we would like to be able to rent the house out to the family when we can.
I
I
have
have a
one more question. It talks about in there a shared driveway. Is that with your relatives that you share the driveway?
We shared the driveway with Ivan and Sina Whip next door. And so that driveway, when Steinbrenners and Bruce Steinbrenner and the Whips were neighbors, they shared an entire driveway, and for whatever reason, they decided to twin off the driveway so that there's just a small section that's shared, for about, I'd say, approximately 60 to 70 feet. And then it splits off into separate driveways again that exit on each property. So 9694 has its own entrance. Ivan and Sina have their own entrance. It joins for about a 60 to 70-foot portion and then splits off again as it approaches Ivan and Sina's house and then approaches our house.
Yeah, and I think that's the road allowance, is it not?
Yes, that's correct. Right on
Yeah,
the road allowance. Yeah.
allowance are between you, so, okay.
That's where it joins, is roughly on the road allowance. I think it's slightly more on our property, but it's in that vicinity.
Yeah, and that bridge is secure enough if people come with heavy vehicles?
Yeah, it was built by the Ministry of Transport when they did the restoration of Shahum Creek.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the one they built out in the roads, we call it $1 million bridge.
The $1 million bridge, and then I've got the few $1,000 bridge
Yeah.
right below.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question about accommodating RVs on a property. So we've seen, I've seen many circumstances where people have like 4 and more RVs on their property during the summer. And then the complaints start coming in, and you're saying that people will come and use these RVs on your property. You said, well, you did.
Not for rental. Sorry, not for rental.
Not for rental, but
Yeah.
exactly. But they're using the RVs. It's not a rental thing. This is different. So what the complaints that I'm getting are not for rentals that are RVs that are rentals. They're for properties that have a lot of RVs that just show up, and it's your friends or your family or whatever. So I'm wondering how this situation happens. Like, is this allowed? So I'm asking staff, like, because this is the kind of complaints that I hear about. So I'm just asking about that.
Yeah, it is. You know, as I mentioned, the zoning allows for it on a 24-hour basis. So no, the
For how
technical
many?
sense, For one. So it allows you to use one RV for a 24-hour basis. That is not the norm for family uses of these types of properties. So I wouldn't say it's entirely out of character. And we have spent some time looking at what those limits should be in the A zones. For example, the previous property on Dixon, its zoned A1 allows for up to 30 days at a time. So there were some changes that were proposed in the draft updated zoning bylaw around that, and I imagine we'll be continuing to have some conversations about how we manage family owned RVs in as we look at the OCP update project that's underway. So the short answer is right now the zoning allows for that one night use on an intermittent basis, and wouldn't allow for the family to come to stay for a week and so on. The biggest concern there, obviously, the nuisances associated with that. We do get complaints about that, but also the unknown about how the sewage is being managed. So that would be one that we always want to make sure that it's being handled safely and securely if there is a regular use of an RV on a property.
Mhm.
So continuing on with that, I've approved, I believe we just approved a property that allowed to have one RV stay on that property. That was out Beaver Creek. That's in an area that's not zoned for this. So I'm wondering, where do we identify that this is permitted? I'm just having a hard time understanding how to approve something that's not permitted. Thanks.
I agree. I'll answer that. Then I'll go to you, Mark, because I know you'd like to make a comment there. But the application that we just looked at in another area was to allow for an RV under a temporary use permit to be used as a short-term housing solution. So through the temporary use permit process, the ACRE can do that. They can make they can pass the temporary use permit to allow anything under it's basically a short-term temporary zoning. In that case, it was hardwired into the septic and water, and it had been in a spot that that was a semi-permanent basis, and the neighbors are notified and all of that. So there is an application process that would allow for that. If these applicants or another property owner wanted to come to us and say, I have an RV on the property and I'd like to apply to use it over the summer, we did actually have one on the core property. You might recall on Faber Road a couple summers ago, maybe last summer, where they had the RV set up, connected to services, and they wanted to use it under for themselves on a short-term basis in the summer, and the board approved that one as well. So it is a challenge. I get that. This application is specific to the use of the home, but that doesn't mean that somebody can make could not make an application to allow for the use of the RVs as well.
This just feels like mixed use. Like adding the temporary use to the home, it's just feels like a lot there. Question, have we had any complaints about this property? Thanks.
We have not. No, I'm not aware of anything that has been an issue on this property. But again, the neighbor notification will highlight those issues if there are any. Mark, I see your hand up there if you'd like to add any comments.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, and I just did want to reassure these are not trailers that we're renting out, and they're mainly there for storage. They're all winterized, they're not being used, and we do. We've been there for more than a decade, and our neighbors. We have great relationships with both the Seatons and with the Whips, and we know them very well, and we have a great relationship that has persisted more than a decade. So certainly their interests are important to us, and we speak with them frequently and are good friends, frankly. So in terms of how we've communicated with them when people are staying, it's yeah, it's very open, and we kind of all participate together. So as far as the complaint aspect goes, I'd say we've valued that relationship with our neighbors, and worked to make sure that everybody's happy.
That's wonderful. But my question wasn't around rentals, though. It
Mhm.
was around the use of RVs on a property, having
Yeah.
that our people are staying in. So
Okay.
that like there's a difference. So
Joe?
Joe Margaret?
Yeah, the topic is short-term rental. And Mark, you've given a really good description of a lot of activity going on. Do you mind if I ask just how much of it is actual rental? I mean, you've got a lot of friends, family, bike racers, and neighbors and everything else. Are you actually renting a lot, or is it just a lot of activity and you have to cover yourself by having a short-term rental permit?
Well, we haven't been renting. So we've been living in the house for the summers, and it's just moving on to a bit of a different life phase where if we had the opportunity, the rest of the property would be empty, and two of us could go over and stay at Tim's house and then be able to rent out the house. So we would like the opportunity to be able to put a family like the Van Vliets in the house, while we stay next door where there is caretakers, and there wouldn't be anybody else on the property staying with them. That's all that we're looking for.
Here.
Any further questions? Yep.
I wonder if, so the application in front of us is looks to me to be for, year-round rentals at any time, multiple times during the year. Based on what you were just describing as what you want to do, I wonder if you'd be amenable to, a more restrictive application.
I would certainly hear what you're proposing. I mean, I suppose like I'm curious about what the restriction would be intended to address. And I mean, obviously I want to work with the planning committee and address any concerns. The times where we would like to be able to rent it out tend to be during the summer, as that's, we just given our family life stage where I have different events that I go to with the kids in the summer in different parts of BC. So that's when we have availability to rent it. The application was thought of as year round because if there was an opportunity, say over Easter or another opportunity, then great. But that would definitely not be a time when there was other kinds of use going on. So yeah, I mean, I'm open to possibilities. Just want to just wondering which concerns that would be addressing by limiting it, and when you would be proposing the limitations.
Well, the issue more is that this is zone residential use, and what often happens in these, I'm not saying that you have the intention of doing it, but we end up with essentially hotels, and then there are complaints.
Certainly.
You're asking for a variation in the existing zoning. And you already have zoning that would allow you to make additional money off of the property. Or you could have somebody still living in the house and rent out rooms, but instead you're asking for unlimited, that's what this is, unlimited rentals.
Yeah. And with the So just having heard the previous applicant, I think he was also requesting the same. And with this property, we do have we have a history of good relationships and being able to rent this out in a similar way previous to the regulations coming in. I know for certain that the neighbors would not be pleased with running an RV rental or an RV park with that zoning. I think that that would actually cause a lot more friction and is not something they would want to see. And although we have the zoning, those relationships are really important to us, as is the preservation of the property, particularly with Shunem Creek being there and the salmon bearing stream. I don't know that that would be the best use. I know that's potentially not, I know the zoning is there and we could be using it, but I just don't see that as good stewardship, to be honest. And I don't see it as promoting good relationships with our neighbors.
Well, and I'll also add that just looking at the temporary use permit conditions that are laid out in the report here, there are restrictions in there against camping on the property as part of the short-term rental use. So we could clarify that aspect, that if the APT were interested in this, and then ultimately the board will be making the decision next week. But or a couple weeks now, sorry, we could further restrict the camping of the property, and that the RVs that are stored on the property are just that. They are personal storage of RVs. And that they're not used at a time when the STR is in use. That's an additional restriction that could be applied there. I don't know if the restricting it to summer months really makes much of a difference, and that could be one that as part of the neighbor notification process we can ask that question. We can always make the change to that once it comes back to the board.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, Mark, are you at all interested? The house is empty then when you're not in it, or you're not renting it for short term?
No, we live in the house.
Oh, you live in the house?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just was thinking that if it was an empty house, then long-term rental would be a really great opportunity because there's such a lack of housing.
Yeah, no, we live in the house.
Okay. Then forget that then.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, Penny. I didn't mean to be too direct. I apologize if I was, but yes, this is
No, I just wondered if it was just a vacant house that was being rented. Oh, okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I just want to clarify something. Mark, don't you have a renter in the house right now?
We have a renter right now. My son is participating in a school program in Squamish right now. So she's rented it for a lease up to 6 months while we have him in that program. But that terminates, I guess, it would be February.
Okay, so then
But that's not a short-term rental.
No, I understand that, but you were just, my understanding was that there was a renter in the house, so.
Yeah, she's renting it with all our furniture and everything.
Yeah.
It's still our home. It's just it provides us the opportunity for Taj to be able to try out a program to support his racing.
Okay.
So I have
Thank
a question then, hearing that. That was one of the reasons why I was asking about the vacant house and if it was being rented long term, because I'll ask staff, isn't there some kind of challenge there, a conflict when you rent long term as opposed to short term when you have this short term temporary use permit in place uh, for long-term? Thanks.
Yeah, not necessarily a conflict. I mean, in terms of the way zoning would look at it, it would look at a long-term renter the same way as it would a property owner who resides on the property. So, no, I don't think there's any conflict there. Even if we have issued a temporary use permit on a property that allows for the short-term rental use, that doesn't preclude it from also having it rented
Okay.
long-term, right? So that is that's a use that they could have. For example, I know of other people that will rent it longer term over the winter for an 8-month period, and then do a shorter rental for 4 months in the summer months. So
Thanks for that clarification, because I thought there was something on the West Coast that actually they were looking at a long-term, and they specifically made it for 4 or 6 months because the other months were long-term rentals over 30 days. So just thought there was some kind of a conflict there. But if not, that's good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Oh,
Renee,
sorry.
Renee has a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. As soon as I get the mute off. This is a split zoning on this property. So the mobile home residential zoning, you could have quite a few mobile homes there.
Theoretically, yeah, on that zoning.
Yeah. So if you
Yeah.
want to do it, you could.
it is and just to clarify that the mobile home residential zoning is not for RVs either. It's for mobile homes that would be issued with building permits and would be on pads like you would see in the Sproat mobile home park. So it's a little bit different than the campground zoning at Tall Timbers, for example.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking if it's like Tall Timbers, then yeah, you could put a whole bunch in there. Okay.
Yeah. Again, the stream and the creek. I mean, I'm wearing a salmon shirt. This is a big part of our life, and I don't believe that kind of use is great for the stewardship of the property, to be honest. And it does serve as a very good coho and sockeye rearing system. So we're happy to keep it as natural as we can.
But the zoning is still there, right?
The zoning is still there, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there a mover? Looking. Joe,
Yeah, I would move that we pass it for short-term rental, but I'd like to be really certain that it's one strike you're out type thing, because it obviously seems like there's a lot of concern. And I don't quite follow who the caretaker would be when there is a rental in place.
It would be us. We would be the caretaker.
But I understand that you would be away a lot too. So how do you do that?
So if I go away, for example, if I go with my son Taj on a bike race, my wife Fawn and my son Quinn stay next door with my uncle Tim, who has a lot of rooms available in his house. There's his property and the one next door. He owns both. They're literally within a 1-minute walking distance from the property. Tim lives next door. This is our uncle, and he's been on the property for 20 years. So similarly, like that would be one situation where we have housing that we could be renting out.
Okay. So my motion stands then.
okay. Seconder?
And just to clarify, this would be support for the temporary the temporary use permit with the conditions of use that are outlined in the report.
Can I second it? I'll second it. All those in favor? So, no? I'm in favor. So, oppose?
Okay, so we again, we don't have quorum, so this would be a recommendation, but I will note that the one member in the room here was not supportive of it, but I think it's helpful discussion for us, and
Yeah.
and certainly we can outline what that looks like in the report, bring this forward to the board, and see where that goes. Again, if the board proceeds with that, the next step would be the public input process, where we'd send letters out to everybody within 100 meters and bring that back to the board. Do you have any questions at all, Mark? Or
Penny has her hand up. Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah. So I have a question about both of these applications because we don't have a quorum. Will it go out, the minutes, because now we're going to have minutes, will that go out to the rest of the APC members for any comment before the board meeting?
That's a good question. It would not, no. So our anticipation would be that our expectation is that the minutes are going to be received by the board at the upcoming meeting. So we'll draft up the minutes as written here. The board will receive them at the subsequent meeting, and then this APC would adopt them at their next meeting. So they certainly will be available for the public to review, APC members, and the board members at the December 10th meeting.
So the minutes won't be ready until the next APC meeting?
They get received at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be in
With this new process, it's changed things a bit. I think that it would be, because I wouldn't think of mentioning this except for we don't have quorum, so there's only three voting members there for these two applications. So it would be really valuable for the board to actually have more comment from the APCs.
I would agree.
Not just mine, but
Yeah.
all of them.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I would tend to agree, and I think the staff recommendation would be that we can proceed with that we would certainly recommend that the board proceed with the next process, which is the neighbor notification. But there's always the option to refer this back to the next APC meeting for further discussion, or to allow for wider comment from the other APC members before the board makes the final decision.
I'd like to do that, but I hate wasting time. The applicants are waiting for decisions. So I'm just wondering if we can speed it up a little bit by trying to do things before the board has to make a decision.
Sure. Well, we could look at some options with that. The APC members can give their input, but they won't have any opportunity to be a part of the discussion, I guess. So
Exactly.
it's a little
Yeah.
bit more challenging to have more discussion without having other APC meetings.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that?
Well, just even if it goes ahead, it still goes to the neighbors, correct? Yeah. Now, I know you got your relatives on the one side, but it goes to more than that as well, does it not?
Yeah, this would go to Ivan and Sina Whip, as well as to Tim and Kathy Season.
Okay. Any other questions on that one at all, or anything else?
So it's a matter of distance, right? So it might go to more.
Yes, it's a 100-meter buffer around the property, so probably to 2 on either side, and then the neighbor across the room as well. And it's the property owners and the residents as well. So if there's non-resident property owners there, they'll get a letter at their residence, and then we'll send one to the occupants of the property as well.
sorry, I have a quick procedural question. So is it 100? I'm looking at the scale, the map. Is it 100 meters from the edge of the property line or from the center of the property line?
From the edge of the property line.
So that actually covers that whole other mobile home park.
It might make it to the Lakeshore Campground. Yeah, I don't have the map in front of me, but yes, it might. And if that's the case, then they'll be included in that that
That's
neighbor
a lot of
notification. That is a lot of letters, but that's,
Thank you.
Canada Post needs their help anyways. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, if there's any other questions, please let us know. Otherwise, Roberta, thank you so much for being our chairperson today.
All righty. You're welcome.
Alex, can I just clarify one thing, sort of
Yeah.
on the next steps? So was the neighbor notification process was going to be initiated? Is that what am I hearing correctly?
That would be what the board will consider at their December 10th meeting. Yeah. So
Perfect. Okay.
this would go forward to that. Joe?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for Alex, nothing to do with these applications, but Alex, I appreciate you've informed us that the format that these APC meetings are going to take a slightly different shape, similar to what the board meetings are. In the board meetings, is there an in-camera session at the end of every board meeting?
They're not necessarily at the end of every board meeting, but if there's an opportunity or a need to go in camera, the board will often do that. The APCs have the ability to do that as well, but there has to be a prescribed need to go in camera, and that's laid out in the legislation. So it usually has to do with legal advice, for example, if we were to share that with the APC, or the board will go in camera for things like personnel matters. Property purchasing and whatnot.
The reason I ask is it's been brought up by a couple of the members of the APC that sometimes there'd be a lot of things we'd like to talk about without actually seeming to affront or contradict anything that's been said by the applicants. And with these APC meetings, there really isn't much of an avenue to do that in. And we're not supposed to be doing this outside of the APC meetings.
And that's a challenge, right? That's not one of the reasons to go in camera. So, the staff recommendation would be that, the discussions about an application be held in an open meeting, and then allow the applicants the ability to respond to that. So it can be hard. I get that, but yeah, that's the procedural fairness of the way these meetings and the legislation that are behind these meetings are laid out.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
So just in that manner, could members of the APC like put in anonymous questions? Like,
we can look into that, potentially. Yeah, like if there were questions that they wanted to come through staff, maybe. They'll have to report back to you on that, just to see what that looks like. Part of the process here is to align the way that we do all of the committees that the ACRD has in terms of a consistent process, and then also a more transparent process as well, so that it allows members of the public and other members of the board to see the discussion, the fulsome discussion that isn't necessarily captured in the minutes, but absolutely, if there's an opportunity for people to submit questions that are then read out in the meeting and addressed in the meeting with the applicants having the opportunity to respond, then we can look at that option.
what about with our process with the board meetings? We at this point, at the end of the meeting, the chair would ask for if there's any questions or any comments in the chat. So is there opportunities for any of that?
Not at the moment. No, the challenge with that is that with an active application process, there is a mechanism for neighbor notification and all of these things that we do, right? And we don't want to we want to allow for the opportunity for that process that's laid out in the Local Government Act to run its course, and not allow for comments or for delegations from members of the public opposing something ahead of time, as part of the agenda. That doesn't necessarily mean that the APC can't pass a motion to invite somebody to speak if they're in attendance, they are public meetings, or to receive correspondence or whatnot. But what's important to us is that that procedural fairness is in place, and that the applicants have the opportunity to be here to help with the discussion in that, and that the APC has all of the information in front of them, and that nobody jumps ahead of the process. Makes any sense?
Right.
Challenging one. We just have to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's been APC meetings where we've had an audience.
Yeah, I can think of one for sure in Sproat Lake Fire Hall where I think we capped it at 50. So yeah, there are times when they can be challenging.
Yeah.
I think at that meeting that the APC ended up passing a motion to invite up to 3 people to address the meeting, and then we ultimately had a public
Right.
hearing later down the line. I think we had 2 public hearings for that one. So there is an opportunity for members of the public to participate in all of these processes. It's just not usually at the APC meeting. It's usually at the public hearing.
Yes, but I'm just thinking it could happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.